the John and Ken Show. John Cobelt and Ken Champeau. There's something in human nature, the desire to predict. People are constantly making political predictions, sports predictions.
And you can make money off of it, obviously, especially if you turn out to be fairly correct. Gerold Celente is the CEO of Trends Research Institute. Now, he successfully predicted the 1997 Asian currency crisis, the subprime mortgage collapse, and the massive devaluation of the U.S. dollar. And he told United Press International last November that the year 2008 would be known as the panic of 2008. Giants would tumble to their deaths, which is exactly what we have witnessed with the collapse of Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, and others. You know the whole story there.
He also predicted the 1987 stock market crash and the fall of the Soviet Union.
So he has to be taken seriously, and what he's going to talk about now is what America could look like in just a few years.
And it's not a pretty picture. Let's get Gerald Celente on the line. Gerald.
Hey, hi, guys.
Hi there. You really predicted all this stuff, huh?
Oh, yeah, we have a publication, the Trends Journal, and it's a global circulation, and we came out with our top trend list of 2008 in just about this time last year. And the top trends were the panic of '08 and an economic 9/11. And what we're looking for as we're coming to the trends of 2009 is the collapse of '09. What we saw in the panic was most of the focus has been on the real estate market and the financial sector. In '09, we're going to see retail chains collapse, and we're already seeing it. You know, current events form future trends, and if you stay in touch with what's going on and you make connections, you can see what the face of the future will look like. Well, a current event today is what? Office Depot announced that they're closing a whole load of stores and firing a couple of thousand people in the process. We just heard Circuit City a while ago, Starbucks closing stores, Sharper Image going bankrupt. After the Christmas holiday sales really ring in dismally, you're going to start seeing major names start to go under. I'm mentioning this because the next shoe to fall following the home market in real estate is going to be the commercial market. So, you know, for years we've all known that we've been overstored. There are too many stores around. And what's going to happen now with all these vacancies, who's going to fill them?
But you're talking about some chains that have been around for a long time, and I realize while this is an economic downturn, how could they not prepare for this?
Well, you know, it's amazing. You know, I've been in this business since 1980. And you know, there's a great quote, a Jesus quote that, you know, I could heal the sick, I could make the blind see, I could make the lame walk, I could even raise the dead, but not even I, could save a fool from their foolishness. And that's what's going on out here. I mean, these are not bright cats. I mean, they make a lot of bad decisions.
Oh, they definitely. I mean, they always overexpand, and they're always over-optimistic. But I would think, you know, you could survive the change. You just close some of the stores.
Well, you see, that's the thing. You see, the whole corporate model has been built on growth and expansion. You know, you go into these stores, and you always say to yourself, you know, how can they keep this place open? Hardly anybody in here. Their whole business model to keep getting people to invest in their companies was, we're building 800 new stores next year. And they believe this stuff. And now the game has run out. By the way, the same holds true with agribusiness. It's built upon producing huge quantities of product and shipping it far distances. That model's breaking down, too. So the flip side of this, by the way, is you're going to see more local, buy local, shop local. And as the big chains fall, they're going to be leaving gaps behind. And they could be filled by smart entrepreneurs. But on the grander level here, for example, back here in New York, we have 20% of our tax receipts come from Wall Street. They're firing people like crazy. New York City's way overbuilt. You're going to have empty buildings, empty commercial space all over. So what we're saying is get ready for the collapse of '09. And I want to make this really clear. I'm a political atheist. I don't believe in these fairy tales, you know. I began my career, by the way, just briefly. I ran the mayoral campaign in Yonkers, New York in 1971. I worked as the assistant to the Secretary of the Senate, the New York State Senate. I was in D.C. as a government affairs specialist from 73 to 79. I know who these people are. They're not the brightest people on the block. And for people to think, I mean, you know, you look around and you see who's running the show. I mean, again, you know, I could go on both sides equally, But, yeah, I mean, you look at Pelosi, Barney Frank, who else they have? Harry Reid, and then you have Bonner on the Republican side. How about Abbott and Costello or Laurel and Hardy? I mean, do people really think that these people are going to fix what's busted, that they broke?
Let's go above that. Let's look at, like, the Secretary of the Treasury. I realize he came from a big Wall Street firm, but it seems like we don't even know what we're doing with these bailouts.
Well, again, that's what you're saying when you mention about, how could these other firms get in trouble? I mean, look at the people around.
If you had smarter people in government, and I'm fantasizing here, could the government take steps to avoid this collapse that you're predicting?
No.
There's nothing anyone can do.
No, it has to collapse. They can't prop it up. That's the fallacy.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah, well, we call it the Bernanke two-step, of course, for the Federal Reserve Chairman. These are the two things that anybody says they're going to do. We're going to adjust interest rates, or we're going to print more money. That's it. If anybody could tell me anything different that they say, I'm all ears.
That's the only two weapons they have.
We've been saying
and
that.
They don't work. So what we're going to start seeing, I heard Obama say deficits don't matter. And is he kidding? I mean, you could tell that to a bunch of high school kids, but don't tell me they don't matter. They matter in government. They matter in our personal lives. You can't keep printing money. So what they're going to do is they're setting up a situation here for hyperinflation to start kicking in. Again, current events form future trends. You just look at what gold is doing today. Gold's up like $38 an ounce. The rest of the world knows what's going on. You can't keep printing money and with nothing backing it. So there's no way out. The only way out, by the way, there is a way out, and that is when you go back to the 1990s. What got us out of the 1990s recession, it wasn't Bill Clinton. It was the Internet boom, the whole technological revolution.
That's what John's already said, right. There was a whole revolution that came.
No, Clinton was playing golf. He wasn't doing anything. It was all these other people who created, not created the Internet, but learned how to apply the Internet.
Created the Internet.
Al Gore created the Internet, and all the people who came up with the applications to make it work.
Of course, he was slaving away,
Yeah, but then
laboratory.
And there was another lesson in that. Then when you saw at the end of the decade, everyone just went crazy over the dot-com stocks and were building something and buying them up but it wasn't there. It wasn't really there.
But there was a real productive capacity where all our lives have changed, the way we do business, the way we're on the Internet. It was a productive capacity that pulled us out. We need a productive capacity. For example, if there's a real alternative energy, something, beyond wind, solar, geothermal, biofuels, the popular ones they talk about.
All the stuff we've heard about for 50 years, right?
Yeah, something revolutionary like, cold fusion, zero-point energy, charge clusters, permanent magnets, hydrino power, something as big as the discovery of fire or the invention of the wheel. We need a productive capacity. You can't print your way out of this. Following the Great Collapse, we're going to go into the Greatest Depression. And I'll tell you why it's going to be worse than the last depression. Back then, most people didn't own homes. You didn't have taxes, insurance, upkeep. And back then, people didn't have credit cards. They weren't $14 trillion in debt. And back then, people weren't watching their whole life savings evaporate with their 401s and IRAs. And back then, we had a trade surplus, not $700 billion a year in the red. And back then, we had a budget surplus, not $11.5 trillion in the red. And most importantly, back then, when we did get out of it with the beginning of World War II, we had a real productive capacity. We were the world's greatest manufacturers, bar none. We don't have that anymore. No, this is really serious what's going on. And anybody thinking that a politician is going to save this, boy, they're dreaming.
Well, I watch a lot of financial channels and financial news, and you have all these jokers come on, and they're saying, in 6 months things are going to turn around.
We've already bottomed out.
Yeah,
right?
in 12 months it's going to turn around. You got to just get all this money coursing through the system, and things are going to start stabilizing. Are they just blowing gas, or did...
Well, here's what we say. Why listen to the people that didn't see it coming and denied it, who are going to say what's going to happen next? And when you look at Obama's team that he's bringing in, I mean, he's bringing in the old Clinton clan. This guy Summers, and this is the guy that, with the help of Rubin, who was also from Goldman Sachs and also the Treasury Secretary before Summers under the Clinton administration, these are the guys that destroyed the Glass-Steagall Act, which was a banking act put in place during the Great Depression so the banksters couldn't rob us blind like they're doing it now. These are the guys that killed it. And this guy Geithner, and I love it, the press, they always call these guys brilliant. I love it. Yeah, they're brilliant. They're the ones that caused it. The definition of stupidity is repeating the same thing over again and expecting different results.
All right, hang on right there. We got Gerald Celente. He's the CEO of Trends Research Institute.
He has successfully predicted in the past many great economic crises, and now he's predicting he predicted the panic of 2008 when the giants like Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns tumbled to their deaths, and now he's predicting a big collapse coming in 2009 and beyond that.
It's coming up on the John and Ken Show on KFI AM640, more stimulating talk radio.
The more you listen, the more you know.
KFI AM640, more stimulating talk radio.
KFI's big stories.
Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich says he plans to make a formal statement about his arrest on federal corruption charges.
Chrysler is closing all 30 of its plants for a month starting on Friday.
We're on it. KFI.
John and Ken Show, John Cobelt and Ken Champeau. Really enjoying talking with Gerold Celente here.
Yeah, he's the CEO of something called Trends Research Institute, and he's had quite an accurate run predicting future world and economic events.
Going back to 1987, the stock market crash, the fall of the Soviet Union, the 97 Asian currency crisis. He predicted the recent subprime mortgage collapse, the devaluation of the U.S. dollar, predicted the panic of 2008, which we're going through.
And he told us that in 2009, we're going to see a lot of major retailers closing their doors. There's going to be a commercial collapse, but we wanted to go beyond that because he thinks that by 2012 could actually become undeveloped kind of third world nation.
Explain this. Do you really believe this? Is there a
Well, we're saying we're calling it an underdeveloping nation in the sense that, yeah, we are. Look at the look at the growing lower classes in the society. Look how many people aren't graduating high school. The numbers are phenomenal. And where are you going to get a job? I mean, look at the unemployment numbers. By the way, when you look at the real unemployment numbers, they're really, it's about 12.5% unemployment.
I saw a story on that the other day, that there's a lot of people, when they can't find work, give up looking for work.
They're called.
And then they're not counted anymore as unemployed, which is crazy.
Well, no, it's not crazy. It's criminal. And I mean, again,
right.
This is what's going on. This is the same group, by the way, that say that food and fuel shouldn't be put into core inflation numbers. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that they used to do in the Soviet Union.
Yeah, what is that about?
Food and fuel. Man,
they
it's about all people care about when prices are going up.
And another thing they don't count is people who have part-time jobs who want full-time. They're counted as employed.
I know.
Even though
you're going to start seeing. We're going to see. We're at 12.5. That's a fact. We're going to see 25% unemployment. We're going to see Great Depression levels. We're going into the greatest depression. And by the way, this is worldwide. Our readership is world. We cover the globe, and I travel it. I'm telling you, this thing is it's beyond. Look, that thing they call these exotic securities like derivatives, credit swap default derivatives. I love the names they come up with, and nobody knows what the hell they mean. So you know what the number is on that worldwide? 353 trillion. Who can make up a number like that?
Wow, 353 trillion?
Yeah.
Well, so what's going to happen?
And that's what this is. The paper money is becoming worthless. Here's what we're forecasting, by the way, gold to go to 2,000 and above. And there's a lot of what's going on now is that there's a lot of central bank and bank intervention on driving down the price of gold, because in Europe it's really a hot commodity because people remember what happened before World War II. and they're buying it up. Once people get hip to the fact that the paper they keep printing isn't worth the paper they're printing it on, there's going to be a rush for gold.
Now, what do you suggest people do then to prepare for this?
The things we're suggesting is, well, again, we don't give investment advice, but speaking for myself, I'm a buyer of gold and have been for quite some time. And if you go on our website, you can see I was on CNN back in 2006 saying that, it was going to go up to the level.
And how do all these other experts in your field and in the financial field, how do they treat you?
To grind. They're selling stuff. They're working for the organizations that want you to bear money with them, to be brokers. I love the word broker. You always end up broker than you were before by dealing with them. They're working for all these companies that if you're not putting money in their pocket, then they're not making any money. Because let's not forget that the incentives on Wall Street are based upon volume, not how well your portfolio does. It's how many customers you bring in. So no, I don't. Again, by their deeds you shall know them. That guy Kramer, that Mad Money clown, back in July he said the market had bottomed. Why would people listen to these people? I mean, it's entertainment.
He's a kook.
And I learned that during the dot-com boom. There they were all the time on TV just saying this will go on forever, keep buying.
During the dot-com boom, I used to wake up in the morning and watch CNBC. And because we had a lot of money in tech stocks, and we got a lot of it out, so we didn't suffer too much. But I was keenly interested, like the whole world was. So I'd wake up every morning, and I'd notice the prices were starting to go down. And at first, when the prices were going up, the stock analysts would come and say, "You got to buy this week because it's going to be up 10% by next week. Next week it's up 10%. Hey, you got to buy this week because next week it's 10%." Then when it started going down, they would say the same thing. "Well, you got to buy because this is a great price. It's down 20%, but this is where you want to buy." It would go down another 20%, and he'd say, "Well, you got to buy more because look, this is even better price to buy.
It's a lower price.
No matter what was happening, you were supposed to buy."
Yeah, and then they tell you, and after everything crashes, they say, "And you have to stay in for the long haul."
Yeah, and you've had 10 years worth of gains wiped out.
Exactly, and look what's going on now. The Nasdaq, of course, which was the Dow of the 1929, the tech-heavy Nasdaq, and when it hit a high of 5,000 in March of 2000. Today it's worth the grand total of 1,500. So yeah, the long haul may be another 6 generations.
All right, can you hang on? Because we want to talk about. We haven't even got to what you think America is going to be like in 2012.
And I'd also like to tell people some other advice that they can do to weather the storm.
All right, we're talking to Gerald Celente, the CEO of Trends Research Institute, well known for his accuracy in predicting future world and economic events, and did predict the subprime mortgage collapse before it happened, and also predicted the 1987 stock market collapse, among many other things. So he's talking about a pretty tough and pretty grim America in just a few years.
That's coming up on the John and Ken Show on KFI AM640, more stimulating talk radio.
I'm Terry Ray Elmer in the KFI newsroom. All the roads between Santa Clarita and the Antelope Valley are closed because of the snow. Gary Bozet with the LA County Department of Public Works says his department's working hard to clear them.
I know we're trying to see if we can't get things done by this evening's traffic return, but we can't positively say that. It again depends on the conditions of the weather and the debris that we may encounter.
County officials are trying to get people to stay off of the roads. He says gridlock kept crews from clearing them for a while. Roads closed include the 14, Sierra Highway, and part of the 138. Also the Grapevine, the 15 over the Cajon Pass, and Angeles Forest Highway. 40 miles of Highway 58 has been closed between Bakersfield and Mojave because of the weather. It's shut down from Mojave to General Beale Road. One person has been killed in a helicopter crash in Santa Clarita.
The information I have, and it is preliminary, is that the pilot was in the process of taking off when the helicopter either blew over or fell over onto its side.
The FAA's Ian Greger says one of the rotor blades on the helicopter hit and killed a mechanic on the ground. The pilot was treated by paramedics for minor injuries. Part of an apartment building roof has collapsed in Indio because of the rain.
It appears that the roof was saturated with water.
Sherry Patterson with CAL FIRE in Riverside County says it happened about 3:30.
We had a female patient that was struck by falling debris, which was actually drywall. She was transported to JFK Hospital. We've had 9 people that have been displaced. 2 of the units have been determined to be unsafe.
She says inspectors will check out the other 6 units in the building. A county helicopter searching the L.A. River near the Imperial Highway overpass over the 710. There was a report of a person in the channel. More news after we look at your traffic.
Jam and drive eastbound this afternoon. The 10 is going to be heavy from downtown, staying very busy all the way to Azusa on the San Bernardino Freeway. 60 freeway, just a slight break past Paramount Boulevard, otherwise heavy all the way to Diamond Bar. The 210 freeway busy east and westbound between Sierra Madre Boulevard and the 605. Eastbound stays busy across toward Citrus. We've had a very slow drive on the 22 freeway in both directions between the 55 and Harbor Boulevard, and the San Fernando Valley, very slow drive on the Ventura Freeway. Your westbound delays from the 5 out to the 405. Eastbound heavy on the Valley from White Oak across into Glendale on the Ventura Freeway. Mike Nolan, KFI Traffic.
It's 5:33. The Auto Club of Southern California says more young women are getting drunk and wrecking their cars.
There's been a 116% increase from 1998 to 2007 when it comes to the number of women in their early 20s who are involved in alcohol-related collisions that cause injuries and death. Kathleen Hall with the Stress Institute says this is because women are under more stress these days.
When I was young, if somebody disagreed with you and didn't like you, you didn't have to worry about getting an email that went out to 200 or 300 people with, saying horrible things about you. I think the peer pressure is absolutely incredibly powerful.
And Hall says stress equals risky behavior. Shannon Farron, KFI News.
Southland weather from KFI. A flash flood watch is up for the burn areas through 8 o'clock. Showers, maybe some thunderstorms, maybe hail the rest of the day. Cloudy overnight, a 30% chance of more rain. Partly cloudy tomorrow with highs in the 50s. It's 51 degrees in Burbank. At the close of trading on Wall Street, the Dow was down 100 points. The S&P 500 was down 9. I'm Terry Ray Elmer in the KFI Newsroom.
Johnny Penn Show. John Cobell and Ken Champeau. We're continuing with Gerald Celente, CEO of Trends Research Institute, and for decades now, he has made unbelievably accurate predictions regarding economic collapses going back to the 1987 stock market crash, the 97 Asian currency crisis. All right, let's go through your vision of America in 2012. What does it look like?
Well, you're going to see a lot of empty buildings. You're going to see a lot of poverty. There may be a revolution going on. It's a reality. Look what happened in Chicago.
What kind of a revolution?
Well, it could be, could be a tax revolution. And look what's going on with this whole tax system. I mean, here in New York, they're raising property taxes 7%. I love it. When values are going up, they reassess everything, valuations, because the real estate market's going up and your house is worth more. And when the prices plummet, they raise them again. As people are losing their jobs, real income is declining dramatically. So people can't afford it. They're on the ends.
Well, here in California, they want to raise all sorts of taxes.
They want to raise sales taxes out here, income taxes,
car taxes.
There's no limit to the amount of tax that they want to raise.
Well, you see, this is one of the trends that we're coming up with for 2009. It's called squeeze the little people. And that's what they're doing. And when you squeeze them enough, you see, I was born in the Bronx. I'm a Bronx guy, And these white shoe people out there, the Lehmans and the Goldman crowd and the Washington people, they don't understand it. When people lose everything, they lose it. When you have no house, when you're hungry, when you have no future ahead of you, and you've been getting shafted by giving your money to all the big guys to bail them out, you become angry. And they can't get this in their head. Do you think social revolutions only happen in other countries?
What form would it take? I mean, you're talking about riots?
We think taxes. We think taxes are going to be the spark. School taxes, property taxes, sales taxes. Look, what they're doing here in New York, they've unleashed the revenues, the tax people, sales tax people. They're going to pizza parlors, beauty shops, liquors, all the small people they're going to and shaking them down for more sales tax. This is a perfect Titanic situation. It's when the Titanic was sinking, only the wealthy got the lifeboats. The rest of us were locked down into steerage. And it's the same thing now. Too big to fail. And the people are too small to save. You keep doing that, you make people really angry. So we can see this country in revolution very easily.
And so people will be taken to the streets. I mean, there's one story says you're predicting food riots.
Yeah, food riots because people are going to be hungry and they're going to want food.
It's going to be that basic.
It's going to be that basic. Food, shelter, and clothing. History is replete with it, and it's not going to end now. These people are out of their mind what they're doing. You know why government doesn't work? Because stupid people are making decisions? Locally, nationally, regionally. I mean, these aren't the brightest people out there. And all they're doing, I mean, you saw what's going on in Chicago. They're always feathering their own nest. When are people going to grow up about this?
And at the same time, you're seeing that the rebellion by the workers in Chicago.
Precisely. Current events form future trends.
They're not leaving the factory, and they're getting Bank of America to extend the credit terms to their company.
Well, I always talk about how business cycles are with us, but you think this time this is going to be one we haven't really seen before.
So
absolutely.
The pendulum's just going to go flying off the clock here.
Oh, yeah, because, again, the model is totally different. Again, when you go back to and I love these people that keep going back to the Depression to keep looking for guidelines. I mean, that's like trying to fix up a Model T and, put it in the Indy 500. It's a different time. There's no globalization. There's a world, it's a whole different story now. So again, as I pointed out, we don't have that manufacturing base, the productive capacity to build our way out of this. Look, 70% of our GDP is consumer-based. You can't keep consuming without producing.
Well, that's what I've always said, and I've talked to people who said, well, if right now they're worried about a credit crunch because people can't get money to buy things, and that's the only way to get the economy moving again, how do we get out of this cycle? And what you're saying is we shouldn't even be in that cycle. It's not productive.
It's not productive. What a death wish, shopping until you're dropping. I mean, as a Napolitano, I can imagine.
The thing is, it never made sense to me to rely on people buying stuff forever, but everyone kept doing it, and it worked for so many decades. I used to shrug and say, well, I guess it just runs on its own power, but there was something about it that always bugged me. How can you just expect the whole world to shop forever?
It's a corrupt thinking.
Now we've gotten to a point where that's not going to happen anymore. I mean, people are cutting back, and that's going to just send us more down.
But here's the other. By the way, out of this, we also believe that there could be a renaissance because renaissance followed destruction, and as I said, I travel the world, and one thing that everybody really looks at America at is the ability to be the most innovative place on the planet. And I say this often: if I grew up in Italy, I could never have been the trend forecaster I am because I would have been locked into the culture and restricted by it.
Okay, so what about
the dynamic? We're known for ideas. That's what.
Exactly, but what's happening is the government is restricting it by making the too bigs bigger and knocking out all the competition. Again, current events form future trends. Go to Bloomberg today, and there's a story about how we're going to have four major banks running the entire country. And it's really not three or four, Citigroup, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, and J.P. Morgan. And it's more than just, it's Wall Street has hijacked Washington, if anybody doesn't get it already.
So what about the dynamic of America that can mitigate some of these trends?
Excuse me?
What do you think there is in our population that we could harness to mitigate against the trends?
The entrepreneurial spirit. If that's it, it's very difficult for a small person to get in business and stay in business when they give all the breaks to the big guys. Listen, what's bad for Main Street is great for Wall Street. Why is Main Street dead? Wall Street financed all these huge developers to put up these atrocious malls and suck all the business out of the Main Street. And what do they do when they build these malls? Well, we the people pay for, roads and access and utilities, and they give them tax breaks and loan guarantees. So what's happening is a reversal of that. And the other thing that can get us out of this, and it's very important to understand, and it's anathema to bottom line thinkers, is that art is the way of finding the true meaning of the human spirit. When you go back to the Renaissance, that's what it was about, and it's been like that throughout civilization. So we have to refocus on more important things. And we believe we have that ability to get out of this, but not under the political system that's grabbing more and taking more.
The only ideas you thought maybe would be like with alternative energies and fuels might be the next big productive design to come out of this country and get us moving again, like technology did in the 90s.
Precisely, and also the back to local, building local communities. And people ask us, what should we do? Number one, don't spend any money you don't need because things are going to get a lot tougher. And number two, if your kid's going to school to get a degree in business administration, marketing, internet international relations, any of these soft sciences, psychology, art history, think twice about it because you're probably throwing your money away. And this is no time to do that. If they're going for a hard science where there's a future in it, in engineering with the alternative energies, conservation, anything having to do with that, how to save energy, powers, costs, health care, those fields, send you. But if they're going for one of these things, what are they going to do when they get their, MPA, get a job at Sports Authority? So if they're going to get a job, put them with an apprenticeship and learn a trade, but both in business and with skills with their hands. And what the college industrial complex is teaching, by the way, is going to be inappropriate for the 21st century because what was normal will never be normal again.
Someone listening to you for the last, 45 minutes or so, what are they supposed to do if they have a job in a house right now and they've got some money saved or in the market? What are they supposed to do when you're telling them the world is going to go to hell around them? How do they protect themselves and their family?
Well, the thing is, is your bank safe? Because one of the things we're also projecting is that, they're putting the cloak on Obama of being the next FDR. And let's remember what happened after FDR got elected. Immediately, he called a bank holiday. I mean, you can't get your money out of the bank. Holiday. I love the words they use. Let's have a holiday. Yeah.
So should everyone take their money out of everywhere?
We're not telling anybody to do anything. We're saying think twice. Yeah. And where your money is, and is it going to be safer somewhere else? People, we give, we tell people what other people are doing. And other people that have a lot of money, for example, are putting in banks around the world, particularly in Swiss banks, and they're diversifying into different currencies. So they'll have some dollars, some francs, some yen, some euros, some gold. So that the trick right now is to keep maintaining parity. That's the best you could hope for now, is not to lose what you have.
All right, Gerald Celente, thanks for coming on with us.
Fascinating talking to you, the CEO of Trends Research Institute. Thanks for telling us what you think's going to happen.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
All right.
All right, when we come back, what may happen to you if you have some grown kids is thanks to all of these problems we've been talking about with debt, they may be moving back in with you. We'll explain.
Coming up on the John and Ken Show. On KFI AM640, more stimulating talk radio.
Hands-free stimulation. KFI AM640.
KFI AM640.
John and Ken Show. John Cobell and Ken Shampoo. KFI AM640, more stimulating talk radio. All right, so that was the Gerald Celente interview.
Wow.
Gives you a pit in your stomach, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And as if I didn't have one there already, it just grew bigger.
He's the Trends Research Institute forecaster who's forecasted a lot of economic collapses over the last 20 years, and he thinks we're cooked, and we're cooked for a long time. And he's talking about by 2012 we're going to have squatters' rebellions, food riots, tax revolts, and I'm telling you, the tax revolt is going to start here in California, and we've got one going right now. His interview we had for the Saturday show, but we got a lot of people wanting to hear it again, or they only heard part of it, or they heard about it. It's going to be on the podcast for tonight. Also, if you want to Google him, his name is Celente with Celente, Gerald Celente, Trends Research Institute. Because while the interview was playing, people tuning in and tuning out were getting pieces of it, and they couldn't believe what they were hearing. So Gerald Celente, we'll have a podcast up for it. Now, as far as, yes.
Well, there's an update on the state budget. Democrats now say, as you know, the vote tonight on this complex plan that they've come up with the fees. It says in the Associated Press story that they want to eliminate state gas taxes, but they want to replace the state gas tax with a 39-cent a gallon fee. 39 cents.
Yeah.
I mean, prices have been going down.
But you see the trick they're pulling here. In order to raise the gas tax, you have to get a two-thirds vote. They can't get a two-thirds majority because no Republicans are dealing with them. So what they're going to do is eliminate a 26-cent gas tax that's currently on the books and replace it with a 39-cent fee. So they're actually raising the gas tax by 13 cents. But they're not doing it legally. You got to get a 2/3 majority for that. They're changing the term from tax to fee.
They also say, now you've been saying that all afternoon, that it's in the wording, but they are also saying now they don't need the Republican votes because the plan would not increase the overall amount of taxes coming into California's general fund.
Well, they're playing. They're not only playing semantic games, they're playing numerical games because they've created this complex system of raising some things and lowering others. But I can assure you, you cannot raise the income and the gas tax and the sales tax and the business tax without a 2/3 majority. They're going to come up with some Bernie Madoff-like complicated explanation that makes no sense to the average person, and there's a reason it makes no sense. It's not because they're smarter than you. It's that they're crooked, and they're coming up with a lot of complicated legalistic and financial verbiage to hide the fact that they're breaking the law. Trust me, they're breaking the law. You can't raise these taxes without a 2/3 majority, or they would have been doing it for decades. Why haven't they done it for decades? Because it's illegal. Why do you think the 2/3 majority law is on the books? It's to stop this kind of like wanton rape of the taxpayer. So we've been talking about it periodically throughout the show. We're going to get into it in great detail right after 6 o'clock. We've talked with John Kupal. We're going to play you some of his remarks. We talked with Chuck DeVore. We're going to play you some of that as well. You must understand that the reason they're doing this, it's coming up to Christmas. They were threatening to lock in the Republicans over Christmas, and they thought the Republicans would then do some kind of a deal, even if it's a phony deal, which is what they do every year. And the Republicans said no. Chuck DeVore said, I'll just bring my sleeping bag and we got to sit through Christmas, then we're going to sit through Christmas. Well, the Democrats don't want to sit through Christmas. So now they're going, this is what, Plan Z, the illegal route. And by the way, they've got no problem breaking the law. I mean, they've been rewarding lawbreakers, all those illegal aliens, for a decade now. We have blown $80 billion in this decade on illegal aliens. They've got they passed an illegal tax back in the 1990s that took years to overturn. They knew it was illegal at the time. Took years to overturn. When a court finally overturned it, the government came up with a complicated process for you to reclaim your tax money, and a lot of people didn't bother. You actually had to have saved your tax receipts from like 1993. You had to have because if I remember what it was, is if you bought a car in another state and you moved to California,
right,
you had to pay a tax, an extra tax to register in California. Eventually, a court said you can't do that for whatever reason. And you had to still have that receipt from 1993 to prove that you moved to this state and you paid the extra tax. And if you didn't have that piece of paper, you were out of luck.
I never keep that kind of stuff.
This was like 1999 or 2000 when they finally repealed this tax. Most people didn't have it, and if you did have it, good luck trying to figure out this internet system they had rigged. So, you can't allow them to get away with this and say, oh, well, the court's going to overturn it. Because the court may overturn it like 2 or 5 or 10 years down the road, and you're screwed. So I want you to go to the website, John and Ken Show. Well, KFI AM640.com, and click on the John and Ken Show page. You will see the phone numbers for Darrell Steinberg and Karen Bass. They run the Senate and the Assembly. I'm going to read those numbers on the air after Terry Ray's News because we're getting calls from people stuck in the snow on the 5 and the 14. Lake Elsinore. Lake Elsinore is well south of here, isn't it? Or no?
I'm not positive.
I might think of another lake. It's east?
I know it's
east.
I thought it was east.
Yeah, south and east, though, right? Because I got an email from somebody saying it was snowing.
Oh, it's much more than that, John. There's been snow reported. Eric had a friend call from Malibu.
Snow in Malibu?
Piuma Road, which goes up over the hill into Woodland Hills.
Yeah.
A big snowstorm in Las Vegas.
I saw it biggest maybe in 30 years.
And the boss says someone called her and said there was a snow in Newberry Park.
All right. So you're stuck in the snow.
Listened up.
We're going to give you the phone numbers over the air, all right? So you can call Steinberg and Bass's office. We're getting people emailing the reaction from Steinberg and Bass's office, and it'll piss you off.